So absolutely thrilled to have you join us for today's Campus Champion training. This session is designed as a train the trainer and is targeted toward UR professionals, helping to upskill non-recruitment professionals as they head out this fall. Today will help you sharpen your team skills, deepen your impact, and represent your company with authenticity and excellence. If you're a non-UR team member who is here and you're heading to campus this fall as a campus champion, want to extend a very warm welcome to you as well. Though this session, again, is presented as a train the trainer, I have no doubt that you will find very much value in the information that we're presenting here today. So let's go ahead and dive in. My name is Laura Eckenrode. I'm a senior associate here at Veris Insights with just over a decade of experience in recruiting prior to joining the Veris Insights team last year. Throughout my career, I've had the absolute privilege of attending hundreds of campus career fairs as a recruiter, and I'm excited to be with you all today to talk campus champs and best practices for getting the most out of your interactions with students on campus. One last time before we get started, if you haven't already, pop your name and company name in the chat so we can get a sense of who's in the room with us, and we'll go ahead and dive in. If this is your first time interacting with Veris Insights, or maybe you're not familiar with what we do, it's first helpful to understand who we are. We are a recruiting and analytics firm dedicated to helping university recruiting and talent acquisition leaders attract, engage, and recruit top talent. The job market is changing. We know this, and staying on top of those shifts is critical. We provide current, consistent, actionable data, so you're never really guessing what students want. You're at one step ahead with knowing what they need. Our insights help you cut through the noise and build that real, meaningful connection with your top talent. We combine extensive student and employer data with rigorous analytics and to provide 200 plus Fortune 1000 companies with studies, interactive tools, and advisory services to help them tackle their hardest recruiting challenges. All of this data and expertise and all of the time we spend speaking with students and employers across industries is what makes today's content possible. Here's what's ahead. First, we'll talk about understanding the student experience and how to put those insights into action as you seek to help your campus champs make the most of their time on campus. From there, we'll explore what makes a standout campus rep and why that matters so much. We'll dive into what great campus reps do and don't do to help us have a really insightful frame when we're selecting who to send. And finally, we're going to wrap up with practical tips for success on campus and additional resources that you can provide to your teams and embed in your own company-specific trainings. We're going to spend a decent amount of time today talking about data, looking at numbers, having fun with some graphs, but rest assured that we're going to couch all of that information and all of those important insights into a framework that's not only going to help you understand the numbers, but will answer the questions, so what and now what, as you look to take this content back to your teams. So if you haven't already, grab your lunch or grab a drink if it's a little earlier where you are, and let's get started. The first section here is going to be on the student experience. Primarily, how do we maximize this moment that we're in when we're in front of students and looking to really create the most impactful events? Strong university recruiting has a ripple effect, right? We know it doesn't just fill roles, but it builds the future of your workforce. It's getting harder and harder to break through and grab the attention of students. Students are spending more time on recruiting and are juggling a lot. For underrepresented students, that time investment is often even greater. As you are experts, your role is to equip your campus teams to meet students where they are. That starts with understanding the student experience and helping each team member make every interaction meaningful. I want to first frame up for us why it's important to have teams heading on campus be aware of the current student experience. As leaders, you are preparing team members to represent your organization at a critical touch point in students' career journeys. University recruiting is not just about filling short-term roles. It's that strategic investment in the future of your workforce. First, I'm sure you're all familiar with knowing that university recruiting, again, is that critical component to a company's long-term goals. To highlight just one aspect of this, 90% of UR leaders say early career recruiting plays a crucial role in achieving their organization's broader DEI goals. UR also drives long-term talent outcomes. 57% of eligible interns convert to full-time employees. But to make those conversions meaningful and sustainable, the people you coach need to understand what students are facing today. A strong UR program isn't just built on logistics, right? It's built on empathy and relevance. Our research shows that interns who feel like they belong are twice as likely to want to stay with their employer for 5 years. That sense of belonging starts way before day one. It begins with the very first interaction a student has, whether that's in person at an event or online when they're researching your companies. As trainers, you play a key role in helping your teams create those meaningful, affirming moments. The environment that students are navigating is crowded and competitive. So while many employers are also facing a surge in applications, students are also fielding an average of 4.2 recruiting messages per week, with tech and business talent seeing even more than that. And they're only opening about 55% of those messages. That means that if your teams don't stand out in their communication, in their presence, in their empathy, students may never fully engage with you. Your coaching can be the difference between your team blending in or your team breaking through with these students. Here's the reality your teams need to be ready for, right? Most students spend less than 30 minutes researching companies and are increasingly relying on AI when they're applying to roles. This means that your team can't count on brand recognition or assume students already know who you are. Students may not Google you, right? You have to educate them on the spot when they come up to your table. Your company's in-person and on-campus presence becomes a critical opportunity to build that brand awareness and to leave a lasting impression. You'll also note on the right-hand side of the screen specifically that AI call out there. AI is having quite the impact on the early talent job seeker. So 64% of respondents report using Gen AI tools to apply to internship or full-time role opportunities. And 38% of respondents report submitting more applications when using Gen AI tools. This means that even if someone has applied to your company, they may know very little about you. As a UR leader, it's important to emphasize that this is where your on-campus team becomes more than a logo. It's where students begin to form those real associations with your employer brand. They see you, they hear you, and most importantly, they remember you. That face-to-face moment of interaction with your campus champions really, really matters. Students who are actively searching spend over 7 hours a week on recruiting related activities. That means that your team members aren't just competing for student interest, they're competing for student attention, which is fragmented, limited, and under constant pressure. The bar graphs on the left-hand side of the screen break down how that time is distributed across different recruiting activities. And here's the key insight that's important to take away for your teams. Even though students are dedicating more than 7 hours a week to recruiting, they're only spending about 1 hour a week at actual recruiting events. And during that hour, they're not just talking to your organization. They may be interacting with multiple other employers and multiple other folks as they attend these events. Again, as you are leaders looking to upskill our teams, you're equipping your teams for a high stakes moment during a noisy week. It's essential that they are clear, concise, and deliver high value interactions. Every conversation is one of many that students are going to have. And this conversation with your campus champs could be the moment that sets your company apart. On the screen, you can see data that outlines how students receive and respond to recruiting messages. And you might be wondering, why are we talking about digital outreach in a session focused on on-campus interactions and campus champions? Here's why. Campus recruiting is a multi-layered strategy, right? And while digital outreach plays an important role, handshake, yellow, LinkedIn, emails, right? Students may not even be seeing those messages. If they are, they're likely receiving dozens, if not hundreds, of similarly worded messages from other employers. This is where in-person representation becomes that differentiator and where your campus champions have the most opportunity to stand out. In the previous slide, we discussed how most students spend less than 30 minutes researching a company before attending an event. This slide reinforces the importance of helping your teams understand that when they show up on campus, they may be starting from scratch in a student's awareness of your organization. Be sure to guide your team to be intentional about meeting students where they are. Encourage your campus champs to ask students what they already know about the company. Are they familiar with you? Is this the first time they've heard your name? Are they familiar with what industry you're in? Getting to know where the students are is an important part of starting that dialogue. We also want to encourage our campus champs to fill in the gaps with clear, compelling information about your brand and opportunities at your organization, and also to focus on building that relationship, not just delivering a pitch. Your coaching here helps ensure that your campus champs don't just represent the company, but that they bring it to life for those students in a way that's memorable, that's relevant, and that's real to them. We also know that students today have multiple ways to learn about employers, including job boards, websites, word of mouth, social media. But what you'll notice from this slide is there's a significant trend. On-campus events have surged in influence while virtual events continue to decline. So let's take a moment to just unpack that data because it does directly inform how your team should approach those on-campus interactions. Just a few years ago, thanks in large part to COVID, virtual events were a go-to strategy. But as you can see here, student utilization of virtual events dropped from 42% in 2021 to just 25% in 2024. Meanwhile, on-campus events grew in utilization from 37% to 56% over that same period. We're calling out that 19-point increase because it's one of the fastest growing channels for employer discovery, and it serves as an indication that students expect employers to be back on campus in pre-pandemic form. So what does this mean for your campus champs? It means that your in-person presence isn't just helpful, it's strategic. Students are showing up at campus events not to just meet employers, but to learn about them for the first time. Many aren't coming in with deep company knowledge, so they're looking for that clarity and that connection. As leaders, it's your role to help your campus teams recognize the weight of this moment. So students are forming first impressions. How are we going to help them do that in a positive way? It's our job to make sure our campus champions are prepared to present the brand with consistency and clarity, as well as they're able to tailor messages to be approachable and informative, especially for students, again, who may be encountering the brand for the first time. And while digital still plays a role, this data makes it clear that what happens face-to-face is what students remember the most. So let's circle back to what all of this is really about. Maximizing the moment your campus champions have with students at on-campus events. When a student approaches your team, they're doing so with intention. As we can see from the data I've shared here on the screen, they're primarily motivated by one core thing: increasing their chances of landing a job. That's their mindset when walking up to a table or joining a session or stopping by your booth. Let's make sure our campus champs are ready to meet that motivation head on. Coach your teams to clearly connect the dots between engaging with your company and real outcomes. So this might mean talking about what happens after the event. Are there going to be interviews? Are you going to be doing follow-up? Is there a referral process? What does that look like? Or offering tips or insights that genuinely help students advance in the process. In every conversation, encourage your campus champions to answer the unspoken student question, what's in it for me? Making that value visible helps to build trust and also drive student action. Whether it's through examples, transparency, or enthusiasm, train your campus champs to make the pathway to conversion feel real and accessible. That's how you help students feel like engaging with your company is a step that's worth taking. When your reps head to campus, one of the best things they can do is focus on knowing and sharing what's truly valuable to students. We've spoken about the saturation of companies in the market and the seemingly limitless opportunities students have to find a role. We've talked about competing in an area where there's a lot of messaging going on. If we're looking to make the most of each interaction, let's be sure to anchor to what students find valuable. We asked students which content areas are most helpful at recruiting events, and the top responses, they weren't flashy, complex, or high-level strategy. Instead, students prioritized practical insights and human connection. So here's what that means for your teams. 48% of students said the most valuable thing an employer can share is advice on succeeding in the interview or application process. So this means your reps should come ready to share any tips for standing out at interviews, common mistakes or pitfalls to avoid, as well as any tips on what makes a strong applicant at your company. As a UR leader, coach your campus champs to lean into transparency. Students don't want that vague encouragement of, oh, yeah, you should totally apply. They want actionable advice they can use immediately. 41% of students said they value networking with current employees. That's a reminder that reps aren't just delivering information, they're also building those really, really important relationships. We want to encourage our campus champions to share their own path and talk about maybe why they chose the company. We need to ask students about their aspirations to help them understand if the company is a good fit for them, as well as offer ways to stay in touch and continue the conversation. So whether that's a business card or a different piece of collateral, really, really making sure that they understand that, again, we're invested in them. This relational approach can be just as impactful as sharing job openings. Rounding out the list here on our screen, students also deeply value the company culture, values, and mission, career advancement and growth, as well as specific role details. So coach your champions to be prepared with insights on what your company stands for, how long-term development might look, and how each role contributes to the bigger picture. This level of insight shows students your team is invested in more than just hiring. You are invested in the future. Students are asking themselves, can I picture myself here? Can I succeed here? Campus champs should be able to answer these questions directly, honestly, and with a personal touch. The best recruiting conversations aren't one-sided pitches, of course. They are valuable, human-centered exchanges that empower students to take the next step with your organization. So let's pause here and look at the top attributes students say they care about when evaluating employers. Of course, we want to make sure that we're having natural conversations with students. We want that back and forth dialogue that will reveal any questions they have about the role or about the company. However, to make sure your teams aren't surprised or caught off guard with questions they might get from students, it's a good idea to have them aware of the top attributes that students say they care about when they're evaluating employers. Comp and Ben are at the top of the list. 53% of students rank this in their top three most important employer attributes. Work-life balance follows closely behind, along with the appeal of role or project and career advancement opportunities. I also want to highlight our call out there on job stability. You'll notice a big shift in student priorities with job stability now ranked just as high as opportunity for advancement at 32%. That's a major increase compared to previous years when fewer students considered it top of mind. Especially in uncertain markets or industries that are undergoing change, students are looking for signs of long-term security and clarity around what the future looks like at your company. Every conversation is a chance to connect student priorities with what your company has to offer. We want to make sure that our campus champs know these 5 attributes and are ready to show how your company delivers on at least one or two of them in every interaction. As we move on to our second section here, we're going to take a closer look at why campus representatives matter and why choosing the right ambassador matters and why that's going to make a big impact on your ability to successfully recruit students on campus. The individual that you send to campus becomes the face and the voice of your brand, even if they only interact with students briefly. Their actions, their personality, and their reputation directly influence how your audience perceives you and, again, your brand as a whole. So I want to take a quick moment just to ask you to kind of internally reflect on two things. If you feel like popping this in the chat, feel free. Otherwise, again, just something to noodle on here. But try to outline in your mind a relatively comprehensive list that answers the two questions on the screen. Who do you currently send to campus? And who could you leverage? Who could you send to campus? I'm asking these questions again and asking us to kind of think about this because we want to affirm that we are sending the best folks we can find to fill this crucial role. We'll pause here for just a minute as you all think about and consider your answers here. All right. So let's take a second to read this quote from a student who experienced deep frustration when interacting with campus representatives. Quote, "It's very common for companies to show up to a career fair, you introduce yourself, they give you a QR code and say, here's our link, you can scan it, apply online, and we'll put you in our system. And that's really frustrating as a student because I have an organization that I'm leading, I have grad classes I'm taking, I'm very, very busy. So if I take time out of my day to put on business professional clothes and go talk to a company recruiter, and all they give me is a QR code that I could have found online by myself, it's a complete waste of time." End quote. This is a great reminder why we need to make sure that our time spent on campus is valuable to students and we're sending the right folks to interact with them. Putting yourself in the student's shoes as we work through the remainder of our content, let's think about the specifics of each experience you're offering or each experience your campus champs are offering. Coach your teams to take ownership of the impression that they leave. Every interaction is a brand moment, as we talked about in the previous section, and it might be the only one a student gets. So help your team show up as representatives who help make students feel seen, feel heard, and encouraged to take the next step with your company. There are lots of ways companies try to engage early talent, right? There's high school outreach, there's career websites of all shapes and sizes, direct messages on job boards, again, LinkedIn, handshake, yellow. But one strategy consistently stands out in the eyes of students, and that is building real visible presence on campus. When we spoke to students, one message came through clearly: presence matters. In fact, 89% of students said they're more likely to apply to an employer who regularly sends recruiters to campus. But here's something to consider as you train your teams. 55% of students don't understand who they're speaking to 100% of the time. They may not know the difference between a recruiter or a hiring manager, and they don't necessarily need to. What matters to them is that quality of interaction. This is a powerful insight for your training for your campus champions. Your recruiting team doesn't have to do it all, right? Instead, you can activate that broader employee network or an alumni network or students on campus to show up, connect, and represent your brand. Friendly, welcoming, helpful, and informative representatives create positive interactions with students. So we've got two word clouds on the screen here. On the left side, we've got characteristics of positive interactions. On the right side, characteristics of negative interactions. The data here is clear, right? Students remember friendly, warm, and helpful representatives. But the reverse is also true. Cold, distracted, dismissive behavior leaves a mark. As a leader, this is where you can really help your team understand that recruiting is relationship building. It's not box checking. Our goal here is to make students feel seen and valued and not filtered through and forgotten. So we want to coach our teams to do those things on the left, right? Be warm, smile, make eye contact, be approachable, be curious, ask students questions, and then listen actively to what they share with you. And finally, be generous. Share that helpful advice, offer any clarity you can, and guide on next steps. We also want to remind them to avoid sounding transactional or overly scripted. Students can definitely tell when a conversation is authentic and when it isn't. The way your team engages doesn't just impact this one event, it affects how students perceive your company long term. So, a little humanity, a little effort here goes a very long way. As you coach your teams, help them understand that it's not about who is present, it's about how they show up. Great reps are those who engage students authentically, offer helpful information, and reflect the company's values. Every team member, regardless of role, can be a trusted touch point if they lead with purpose and with people first intent. Encourage your team to think creatively about how they build out that presence and to see that relationship building as a shared responsibility across the organization. Every interaction your team has with a student, again, is an opportunity for that positive, memorable impression. The most effective reps aren't always the most senior recruiters or the most experienced execs, right? As you look to equip or select your representatives for campus events, remind your team that age and experience level aren't what students care about most. So you can see here we have things broken down on the screen in terms of essential traits, beneficial traits, unimportant traits, and then red flags. What matters most is enthusiasm. Do your campus reps want to be there and do they seem genuinely excited to interact with those students? Reliability, or I'm sorry, relatability. Can students see themselves in this person's shoes? Can they feel their energy? Do they see themselves working with this person day to day? Program knowledge. Can they speak clearly about opportunities and next steps, even if they're not the person who's directly in the hiring seat? And finally, willingness to engage. Again, are they approachable? Are they curious? Do they sound and are they exhibiting signs that they actually want to be there interacting with students? These essential traits are what students are drawn to. So when students feel like a rep wants to be at the event, that energy is contagious and it reflects positively on the entire company. Yeah, certain traits like years of experience or technical depth can be beneficial, but those are truly icing on the cake, right? A rep who is warm, informed, and enthusiastic will always be more impactful than one who is polished but disengaged. As a trainer or as a leader, help your teams lean into this authenticity over the formality and remind them that every single interaction can move the needle when it comes to building interest and building belonging. When we're on campus, it's also easy to focus on logistics. So, talking about the roles, passing out flyers, covering the basics. But this slide reminds us students are looking for more than just information. They're looking for connection and they're looking for relevance. They want advice that's personal and not generic. In terms of what students value most, which again is demonstrated here by the bar graph on your screen, specific knowledge of the role. So students want to speak with reps who understand the details, the day-to-day responsibilities, expectation, and career path. Make sure your reps are prepared with accurate, specific role knowledge, or they know who to direct students to. Again, if you have 7 different business lines hiring for different internships, it's not necessary for your campus reps to know each single one, but it is helpful for them to have contact information if they're speaking about a program they may not have the most knowledge about. Students also want actionable advice on applying and interviewing. Again, students aren't looking for fluff. They want tips that are going to help them succeed. So encourage reps to share honest, helpful insights. What makes a student stand out? What's one tip they wish more students knew? This may be easy if you're leveraging a hiring manager as a campus champion, but if you have someone who maybe has never sat in a hiring manager seat before, this may be something you want to share with them before they go to campus. Finally, personal connection. Students want to feel known, not just screened. So help reps ask thoughtful questions and then really listen to the answers. This turns the conversation into, again, that relationship building moment. What matters less to students, but certainly still counts, is only 24% of survey respondents said having a rep from a similar background or identity was extremely or very important, and just 13% valued reps close in age. That doesn't mean identity isn't important. It just means that it's not a substitute for being informed, warm, and helpful. A student here put it best. I felt like a genuine, normal conversation, not a power imbalance. That's the bar. Coach your teams to create interactions that are personable, approachable, and grounded in that mutual respect. The bottom line here for campus champions is to be informed, be helpful, and be human. It's not just about being present, but it's being prepared and being personable and being able to answer questions students ask. So let's walk through quickly what it looks like to be an outstanding representative of your company at a campus event. There are two core dimensions your reps need to be aware of: who they are, how they show up, and what they do, which is how they engage. So your campus representative should be genuinely enthusiastic and informed, which is what we've talked about before, excited, knowledgeable, and relatable. Importantly, of course, they can be of any age. Students care more about the energy and clarity than how close in age someone is to them. If possible, again, and you have the opportunity to share lived experiences with your student audience, particularly engaging with HBCUs, HSIs, or any diversity-focused events, that's a plus as well. In terms of what representatives should do, we can talk about action here. So a great rep doesn't just show up, they need to engage with intentions. So we're talking about making sure our campus champions know to maintain that warmth and friendliness and consistent tone throughout the entire event. They need to introduce themselves and know how to ask students questions, as well as proactively offer that advice we covered in the previous slides and follow up with students, giving them a specific, easy way to stay in touch. In terms of a takeaway checklist here, use this final section on the right-hand side as a reflection and coaching tool. After a conversation, campus champs should ask themselves, did I spend at least half the conversation listening and asking questions about the student's goals? Could I describe one unique thing about the student? Did I offer a way for the student to stay in contact with me? And did I give clear next steps for follow-up? This checklist is going to ensure that every interaction, again, is thoughtful, intentional, and student-centered. This final slide here for this part is really helpful for us to understand and hear directly from students. Their words help us train with purpose. So we asked nearly 950 students to describe the most positive interaction they had with a recruiter or company rep. And what came through loud and clear wasn't fancy job titles or polished presentations. It was that human connection piece. So across majors, class years, and industries, you can see here on the screen, students highlighted the same things. They want to be seen and remembered. They want to feel like a person, not a resume, and they want genuine interest in their success. As you train your teams and your campus representatives, it's important to emphasize that it's not about saying the perfect thing. It's about being present, listening deeply, and showing real interest. Remind your campus champions, students remember how you made them feel. That feeling can shape how they view your brand, whether they decide to apply, interview, and accept your offer down the line. So as you prepare your campus champs, challenge them to lead with that warmth, authenticity, and curiosity. That's often what makes the difference. Now that we know what students want to hear and how to identify the best folks to send to campus, we're going to pivot just briefly into prepping for campus activities and learning how best to support our campus champs. Before we close, just a quick reminder that we've got your back. So from the checklists I'm about to show you to the guides we'll go over, Veris Insights offers practical tools to help you succeed. Using these resources, practicing your pitch, and most importantly, showing up as someone students will want to work with and remember is really, really important as we work to integrate campus champs into our overall strategy. We'll be sending out the following after we wrap up here today. Some of these will be linked in the slide. Some of them will be sent as an attachment. But I do just want to give you a little bit of a heads up that we will have a micro video available, a shorter version of this presentation that you can integrate into your own branded trainings. We'll also have one-pagers you can hand out to your campus champions, so they'll have these kind of quick takeaways as well. You'll get a copy of this deck as well as access to the recording and a smaller deck targeted to your campus champs directly to speak to them in your voice. And again, as something you can embed in your own branded training. As always, if you have any additional questions or you want to make this a high impact event, a custom presentation, we encourage you to reach out to your individual strategy lead to scope out what that might look like. So let's take a closer look at some of these resources as you work to prepare your campus teams. As we look to translate everything we've talked about today into something manageable for teams to digest, let's just take a look at the type of foundation we as university recruitment teams need to give campus champs to make sure they succeed. So if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this probably looks pretty similar, although we took the liberty of simplifying it down quite a bit. What you'll notice from this graphic is that before we ask our on-campus teams to make meaningful connection with students, guiding them through the application process and answering any questions that come their way, we need to make sure the basics are taken care of. So campus champs need to feel secure in their knowledge of the school. What's it known for? Why are they there? Where is it? The logistics and details of the event, location, date, time, and how to acquire and use any materials they might need. So tablecloth, pens, collateral, if you're using an iPad to track, anything that looks like that, they need to know how to use that material. They also need to know how you as the UR team want them to track their interactions with students. Once we have this basic set of needs met, we can then begin to task them with the more challenging parts of their role, including all of the info we've covered today. Campus champs can't be expected to provide a positive, holistic experience to students without having the basics checked off by us in the university recruiting space. With the previous slide in mind, here's a great example of what a comprehensive campus champ checklist might look like. Again, this is going to be linked in the slide deck for you all to access, but note the amount of detail provided and how each step is clearly designed to provide important data and to make it as easy as possible for our campus champs to step right into their roles. I also want to highlight on the screen here, again, linked out in our deck. It's a customizable campus rep training guide and frequently asked question guide. So not only does this resource provide a template with our most frequently asked questions, but it's also editable and allows you to add your own specific question and answers before you distribute this out to your teams. The customizable deck is a training and prep tool for equipping your campus reps with clear student-facing answers, as well as, again, the most frequently asked questions you get during these events. Using a tool like this, giving it as a takeaway item for your campus champs prepares them to have these high quality student experiences. When we pair this with live role play maybe, or another cheat sheet, or maybe a pre-read video to bring it to life in your training, we know that this is going to be something valuable for them to take home. Using this template to build a reference guide tailored to your company's programs, benefits, and hiring process is also really helpful as they're guiding students through that. Encourage your campus champs to review and rehearse any responses prior to events, so they're confident, they're consistent, and they're credible. Part of our campus training guide is a snapshot with some questions reps may receive as they interact with students, pictured here. Students care a lot about who you are beyond the job. So can your campus champs speak to your company's mission, values, DEI efforts, and how early career talent fits into the big picture? If a student asks a tough question, maybe about a layoff or a closure, bad press, or anything else, how will you prepare your campus champs to speak to this professionally and respectfully? The key here, and I think we're all picking up on this at this point, is that preparation and resources are key. So campus ambassadors extend your reach beyond your recruiting team, but that also means they may not have the experience that your team offers. Because some students will still see them as insiders, they often receive these big picture, sometimes sensitive questions about company ethics, impact, and future direction. Your campus champions should feel confident, credible, and prepared. Remind ambassadors of any sort that they don't need to be lawyers or PR people, but they do need to know where to point students for deeper answers. So whether that's you, whether that's a company website, whether that's somebody else internally, we want to make sure they're prepared to do that as well. Additionally, we have resources covering both quick tips for campus interactions as well as takeaways that cover who to send to campus and how to help them prepare. For our quick tips on campus interactions, this is a structured research-backed guide that trains campus reps to prioritize relationship building, share that high-value information, and improve student experience and conversion likelihood at events. This toolkit also includes quick tips, key messages, and a checklist of critical student questions, as well as questions across key recruiting topics. The Event Reps 101 document offers the groundwork to help you establish your baseline expectations for your campus champs based on what students find most effective and memorable. Again, both of these products are customizable for equipping your campus champs, particularly, again, folks outside of the UR space, with those clear student-facing answers to their most frequently asked questions. I know we went over a lot of information today. I do want to say again, thank you so much for joining us. Your role in training those campus champions is vital, and we want to make sure that you feel supported along the way. You are the bridge between your company and your future workforce. So, with the right mindset and the right tools, we know you can help your team make a really powerful impact.